George Krumm here, Fish Alaska Magazine, and today we're going to talk about building a spiral wrap jigging rod, and we're going to be using a Batson RCK JB 600-210. It's a jigging rod rated for 5 to 8 ounces. There are many different types of spiral wraps that we could do. We're going to use the simple spiral method. It's called the simple spiral method for that very reason. It's probably the easiest of all those spiral wrap methods to lay out on a guide blank. Spiral wrapped rods have certain advantages. Generally, a spiral wrapped rod, it's a bait casting rod or conventional rod, but the guide train transitions from on top of the rod blank to the bottom of the rod blank, and it results in a rod that's inherently stable under load. The bigger the fish you're chasing, the more load you're going to have in a rod, the more effective the simple spiral wrap becomes for you. Spiral wrapped rods aren't new. People have been making them for over 100 years. I mentioned there are several different kinds. Many people who have seen a spiral wrapped rod have probably seen the revolver style, maybe the O'Quinn style. We use a simple spiral because it's very easy to set up, yet it's just as effective as virtually all the other methods. To lay out a simple spiral wrap, we have our conventional rod blank here. Normally the rod guides all go on the top. And that's how you start with a simple spiral. You do your guide spacing as if you're doing a normal conventional rod. Only once you have them spaced how you want them, you're going to flip all the guides to the underside of the rod, except for the first guide, the one that's closest to the reel. So all the rods are underneath except for the first one. Between the first one and the second one, which will be out towards the tip just a little ways, halfway between those two, we're going to install a small bumper guide. And that bumper guide, all it's there for is to prevent the line from rubbing on the rod blank as it transitions from the top of the rod to the bottom of the rod. Okay, we're back at it here. While we were gone, we basically set all our guides onto the rod as we would for a normal conventional rod. You can see that they're all on top of the blank. And we're happy with the spacing. We did static testing. We ran line through it. We bent the rod to make sure the path of line is conforming to the bend of the rod pretty much. Then we glued our tip top on, and if you look closely, you'll see the tip top is on the bottom of the rod blank. To make this a simple spiral, all we have to do now is flip every one of these guides to the bottom of the blank, just like the tip top, except for this first guide. So I'll do that right now. As we flip these all to the bottom, I'll check measurements again to make sure they haven't moved forward or back. We just want them on the bottom of the blank. And after we get them all flipped to the bottom like this, they're basically ready to wrap in place. There is one step left to make this a simple spiral. First guide, second guide, you'll notice I have 2 rubber bands here in the middle. Halfway between the first and second guide, we're going to take a small guide and place it as a bumper guide on either the somewhere 90 to 100 degree axis. And since this is it looks like a fairly skinny rod blank, but it's a pretty stout rod. It's going to catch halibut that could be over 100 pounds. There's going to be some load on it. Whenever you have a rod that's fairly heavy like this, that's going to handle that kind of loads, 90 degrees probably isn't going to be perfect. More like 100 degrees offset will be better to follow the line path when the rod's under a strong load. So that's it. Simple spiral guide layout. All the guides end up on the bottom except for the first guide and your bumper guide. Something that's important to point out that I forgot to mention previously is when we place this bumper guide, you can offset it either to the left or to the right. In which direction you go is entirely up to you. It has no real effect on the functionality of the fishing rod, but it can have an effect on how easy it is to stack line back onto your reel. Now if you'll look at this particular setup, we've got the bumper guide offset to the left side of the rod, the reel handle's on the right. For most of my heavy jigging rods, that's the way that I do it. I put the bumper guide opposite the reel handle. If you're using a non-level wind reel, this one's level wind, but if you're using a non-level wind reel, I always offset to the opposite side of the reel handle. The reason is the line will have a tendency to want to stack towards the side that the bumper guide is on. And if that's the case, if this wasn't a level 1 reel, I'd have to use my thumb to guide line back and forth across the spool to keep it roughly level. And to do so, if the line has a tendency to pull towards the bumper guide, which in this case is this direction, and I'm winding with this hand, it's a lot easier to push line like this to help level it, then let go, push line again to level it and let go, than it is to reach over the top and try to pull the line towards you to level it and let go. So that's a wordy explanation, but my preference in general for simple spiral wraps is to offset the bumper guide to the opposite side that the reel handle is on. Thanks for tuning in to watch as we explain how to build a simple spiral rod. Works really good for jig sticks, back bouncing rods, and I actually build a lot of my salmon trolling rods in simple spiral configuration. I'd like to give a shout out to Bill and Carrie and the rest of the crew out at Batson for providing the blank and the components. I've been building rods for 30 years or so. I've been buying Batson blanks and components for probably 15 of those years. They have a really robust selection of both rod blanks and components. So whatever you need, if you're new into building rods or you've been around for a while, you can probably find what you need at Batson for almost any imaginable rod we'd ever use in Alaska.
Number 1 halibut that we just got here. I started jigging, just talked about how slow it was. And then the next thing you know, oh, we might have a real one. Shaking his head like a halibut. Thank goodness, because we've already played one skate too many. Follow your fish is what they told me. That's where I can really start to feel the difference with this rod. It doesn't want to twist in my hand, and I can hold it easily with one hand. Put that one in the box. Take them like that all day. Got it? Oh yeah. We'll take them like that. That's a perfect fish.
Nothing wrong with that.
20 to 25 pound class. What do you think, maybe?